Sometimes when you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, you want to gain just any amount of life points in the most efficient way possible, in the quickest way possible, and all during your main phase 1 or before. In this incredible hypothetical situation that will probably never happen, what are some of the fastest ways to gain life points without hampering your deck too much? And at number 10, we have Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. This card is kind of like the maxi of life point gain, as you send it from your hand to the graveyard in order to gain life points equal to the attack of all effect monsters your opponent summons during this turn. Well, during the main and battle phase, because it does have some restrictions, along with the fact that it cannot be activated during the end phase, and the fact that it has a negative clause, where if you do not gain any life points from its effect, you actually lose half your life points. Now, this card is more about quick life gains during your opponent's turn, where if you need to gain some quick life during your opponent's turn, this is probably the only way to do it. And it's pretty easy to accomplish because most meta decks special summon effect monsters. Additionally, if your opponent decides to go hog wild with summoning, you'll gain an astronomical amount of life points during that turn. And at number 9, we have number XX Utopic Dark Infinity. This is a generic rank 10 monster which has the effect where once per turn you can select another special summon monster you control in order to gain life points equal to its attack. And this is a rare once per turn effect on an Xyz monster which does not require you to detach a material in order to use the effect. So as long as you have Dark Utopic out, every turn you can just gain an extra chunk of life points based on the attack of special summon monsters you control. It does have another effect though, which is basically like Vampire Baby, where if it destroys the monster by battle, it can special summon it by detaching one of its materials. And with 4000 attack, it's pretty easy to get the effect off. If anything, I think this is one of the strongest monsters in the game natively, which has the Vampire Baby effect. Although we don't care about that for this list. All we care about is the fact that it's a generic extra deck monster, which can gain you life points. So if you're playing a deck that goes into level 10 monsters easily, which is basically just Testina, Eldritch, and Trains, then this is the card you want in order to gain some quick life during your main phase, the criteria for this video. And at number 8, we have Ancient Fairy Dragon. This is a generic level 7 synchro monster which has the effect where you can destroy all field spell cards on the field, then gain 1000 life points. Then add a field spell from your deck to your hand which has a different name from the field spells destroyed. So if you have access to a generic level 7 synchro monster, which is pretty easy with Destrudo or Revolution Synchron, and also play field spells, then this is the extra deck monster of choice in order to gain some quick life. However, this is an incredibly narrow amount of decks which can actually take advantage of this. However, if you do take advantage of it, Ancient Fairy Dragon is also an excellent combo extender, because it additionally has an effect to special summon a level 4 lower monster from your hand at the cost of giving up your battle phase. Going into a generic level 7 synchro monster is easier than going into a generic rank 10 Xyz monster, which is the only reason it's slightly higher in this list, though still not quite as easy as some of the higher spots. And at number 7, we have Cyber Angel Natasha. This is a level 5 ritual monster with really low stats for its level, at only 1000 attack and defense, which allows you to, once per turn, gain life points equal to half the attack of one of your monsters. Additionally, it can negate the attacks of monsters that your opponent uses to attack your rituals, and it also has a graveyard effect to tribute a Cyber Angel monster in order to special summon itself from the graveyard to then take control of one of your opponent's monsters. And it's this last effect that allows this card to see competitive play in ritual decks that make use of the Cyber Angel engine, which is the case for a very competitive past deck called Drytron, which would definitely take advantage of Cyber Angel Ben 10 in order to search out a whole bunch of fairies during its turn. A deck that would naturally go into Natasha as well because it allowed you to steal your opponent's cards. The fact that it had a life gain effect was completely irrelevant, but naturally they would use the effect anyway just to gain some extra life because it was a nice bonus on top of its other effects. So if you're playing a ritual deck and need some quick life, there is Natasha as an option, since most ritual decks have a lot of generic searchers that basically search for any ritual monster, but obviously not all of them. And at number 6, we have Neo Space Connector. This is a normal summonable monster which has the effect to special summon a Neo-Spacian monster from your deck on its normal summon. And the card of choice for this list is obviously Neo-Spacian Air Hummingbird. This card simply has the effect where once per turn you can gain 500 life points for each card in your opponent's hand. So if used on your first turn, assuming your opponent still has 5 cards in their hand, you can gain 2500 life points right there. Additionally, you'll then have 2 monsters on board that you can use to start plays if you wish. Now, normally, Neo Space Connector is used to bring out Neo-Spacian Aqua Dolphin, which is sometimes used in some warrior-centric decks, or was before Isolde was banned. So if you wanted some ways to gain quick life, you could just substitute your Neo-Spacian Aqua Dolphin for Neo-Spacian Air Hummingbird, and then gain quick life that way. And at number 5, we have Agave Dragon. This is a generic Link 4 monster, which requires any 2+ monsters accept tokens for its summon. And then if you have any worm type monsters in your graveyard on its summon, you can gain 400 life points for each and every one of them. So if you simply have one worm monster, then you can gain 400 life points, which is actually pretty easy because there's a couple of decks that already natively use worm extra deck monsters. Outside of the obvious archetypes like Sword Soul, which is all about worm monsters, Branded also has Mirror Jade the Iceblade Dragon, and any deck that likes to run Super Polymerization has Mud Dragon of the Swamp. However, if you're just playing a normal deck that doesn't have any of these monsters, you can still find a way to gain the 400 life points if you simply play something like a generic Link 3 monster, and then just use it as a Link Climate material to go into Agave Dragon. Depending on how many generic worm monsters you play in your extra deck, you can gain even more life points from Agave Dragon hitting the field. So even if you just simply play one of them, that's enough to gain at least 400 life points. And it's probably one of the easiest ways to just gain any amount of life point in the average deck that's able to climb into a Link 4 monster. However, going into a Link 4 monster is very difficult for a lot of decks, so it doesn't quite make it at number 1, even if it is probably the most generic way to get quick life out on this list. And at number 4, we have Salamangreat Miragestallio. This is a generic rank 3 Xyz monster, which allows you to tap one of its materials in order to special summon any Salamangreat monster from your deck. And what you do with this is special summon Salamangreat Paro to the field, which can send itself to the graveyard to gain 2000 life points. So if you have the availability of going into generic rank 3 monster, Salamangreat Miragestallio is an option to grab Paro from your deck in order to gain a cool 2000 life points. It also helps that Salamangreat is a pretty decent deck, or at least used to be. So for a time when Salamangreat was still in the limelight, it just straight up had an in-archetype option to gain quick life points during the main phase, which was actually used competitively a few times. But even though Salamangreat has been power crept, the option is still available because Miragestallio is a generic rank 3 monster for some reason. And at number 3, we have DDD Vice King Requiem. This card has a couple of interesting effects, but the main combo you need to know with it starts with a searcher called Dark Contract with the Gate. This is a continuous spell card which simply allows you to add a DD monster from your deck to your hand once per turn, which you use in order to add Vice Requiem to your hand. Then you set Requiem into the Pendulum Scale in order to use its effect to destroy the Dark Contract card in order to special summon itself. Then you can use it as a material in order to go into DDD Divisor King Des Machinae, which has an alternative summon condition where you can just simply use a triple D monster you control as its full material. Then Requiem has an extra effect when it's being used as an Xyz material, where you can return a Dark Contract card from your field or graveyard to your deck in order to destroy one card in the field and gain 1000 life points. Now, this may seem pretty extensive as a combo, but actually this is a 1-card combo, which does not use your normal summon and does not lock you into anything. So if you simply just draw into Dark Contract with the Gate, then you have this entire engine live, and you're free to do anything else you want with your hand or deck afterwards, while also being able to destroy the card and gain 1000 life points. And more importantly for this video, you can target any card on the field to destroy, which does mean your own or even itself. So you can always guarantee to get the 1000 life point gain as long as none of the combo is interrupted by your opponent. This is probably one of the easiest and actually good ways to add life point gain to a deck, just as long as they're able to afford 4 main deck spaces for the 3 Dark Contract cards and 1 Requiem, and 1 extra deck space for Machinae, a small engine which has been used competitively in some decks. And at number 2, we have Curious the Lightsworn Dominion. This is a Link 3 monster, which on summon allows you to send any 1 card from your deck to the graveyard. So if you simply add Skullmark Ladybug to your deck, you can use Curious in order to send it from your deck to the graveyard in order to gain 1000 life points. Now, what this means is that any deck which has the capability to go into Curious also has the ability to instantly gain 1000 life points as long as you have a single Skullmark Ladybug in your deck. So what are the requirements to go into Curious? Well, it's actually kind of difficult, as it requires 3 monsters with the same attribute but different types. Now, most archetypes will have a series of monsters that share either a type or attribute, or a combination of the two. In fact, it's incredibly common for decks to share both type and attribute between all their main deck monsters. But that wasn't the case for every single archetype or even engine. You see, there's this engine called the Danger Engine, which is great for drawing through your deck pretty quickly and getting a whole bunch of cards in your hand to the graveyard. And the Dangers are all dark attribute monsters, but also each one is of a different type and can special summon themselves from the hand. So anyone who has the availability of the Danger Engine can easily go into Curious the Lightsworn Dominion and gain its effect. However, that's not the only deck which is capable of going into Curious. Currently, Curious is banned in the TCG, but in Master Duel and the OCG, where it's still legal, you can still see it in variants of Spiral and even Dragon Link, as they have tons of ways to get materials on the board, and also a lot of extract monsters which can match the requirements necessary to bring out Curious. Even some variants of Snake Eyes have the necessary requirements to bring out Curious. Basically, all of the Link Spam decks can easily bring out this card. So if you just need an easy way to gain some quick life, Curious is the best way to go into it, as long as you side in a single copy of Skullmark Ladybug. And at number 1, we have Gigantic Spright. This is a generic rank 2 monster which has the ability to special summon any level 2 monster from your deck, which is kind of an unprecedented amount of search power for a level, which gives you a huge wide range of targets to go into, especially since Gigantic Spright also has an alternative summon condition where you can treat the Link 2 monsters you control as if they were level 2 for its materials. So if you have the capability of going into 2 Link 2 monsters, you can go into a Gigantic Spright, then the target of choice for this video, which is Red Resonator, as Resonator has the ability where if it's special summoned, you can gain life points equal to the attack of any one face-up monster on the field, which also allows you to target your opponent's monsters, or even itself if it's the only card left. Basically, as long as there is a monster in the field, Red Resonator will be able to gain life points. And if Gigantic Spright is brought out with an extra deck monster as one of its materials, its original attack will be doubled. So you can actually just target Gigantic Spright in order to gain 3,200 life points, which is also the largest chunk you can gain out of all the cards on this list so far, minus the numbers 9 and 10 spots, which is why Gigantic Spright is at the top of this list. All you have to do is just go into 2 Link 2s if you don't play level 2 monsters, or even less if you do have level 2 monsters available, as you can then just bring out Red Resonator in order to gain a whole bunch of life points, which was definitely something that was done competitively back in the day, and even sometimes to this day. Alright, and that's the list. All of the ways to gain quick life in Yu-Gi-Oh!